Hello everybody and welcome to Todd Talk. This month I'm going to tell you about the times I've drunkenly bumped into celebrities.
Todd Talk is brought to you by Dream Cream. Is any of it real?
Celebrities and parties really do go well together. Now, I'm not like an A-lister who's hanging out with celebrities all the time, but I have been at the right place at the right time in a couple of instances. The first one I'll tell you about is kind of a local story. So we have a radio station here in town called 94.7 KNRK. And back in the 90s, when this radio station started, it was very, very popular because alternative music and grunge music and all of that was really taking off. They had a few DJs that people just really, really liked, and the station manager was very popular, and he would talk on the air, and the morning show people were really cool, and they would do different shows and concerts and attend them just like the guests would. Now, back around this time, I was also playing in bands, and so I would go to these things to meet people or make connections for shows and stuff like that, and it was just kind of fun to be out there with all these music types. So there's one show I went to where I saw some of these radio people hanging out, and there's a couple of the DJs that I was pretty friendly with, and a couple others I just knew from their on-air voices and that kind of thing. So I was hanging out, and at this table was the station manager, a couple of the DJs that I had heard on the air, and then the wife of the morning show host. He hadn't gotten there yet. The station manager was waiting for somebody, a friend of his or something, to come by, and we all decided that I would pretend I was the morning show host, and this was my wife. And when this guy showed up, he, kind of, hey, how you doing? You know this person, you know this person, and you know this person. And he looked at me and was like, I don't think that's him. And we kept the facade up for probably about 3 minutes before everybody kind of started laughing and all that. But it was just a fun thing and cool to hang out with those sorts of industry types. Now, playing in bands and stuff like that, I would go to different parties or hang out with people, and you would run into other musicians, sometimes pretty famous musicians. There's one party I went to, and while we're hanging out, there was a few musicians who were pretty notable, and among them was Everclear. I was talking to a friend, and then we kind of bumped into the bass player, Craig. And Craig looked like he'd either been there for a while or had quite a lot to drink. And I started teasing him, and every time I would talk to him, I would say his entire name. So I would be like, yeah, I'm having a pretty good time, Craig Montoya. And after a while, he kind of, picked up that I was doing this and was really getting kind of paranoid. I don't know if he was on drugs or what, but it was pretty funny at the time. And years later, I ended up running into him with some friends at a bar, and we were all kind of talking for a moment, and I told him, I was like, I don't know if you remember 10 years ago, we were at this guy's house, and I was kind of teasing you or just kind of being a bully. And I always kind of felt kind of bad about that. And he, of course, was like, I have no memory of that at all, but I really appreciate you, saying that. So I felt better after apologizing for being a jerk. So there's another time I was hanging out in Hollywood for work, and I was hanging out with a buddy, and we decided to go to the Roosevelt Hotel, which is an old, very cool, historic Hollywood hotel. I think way back in the day, the original Academy Awards were held there. So we got a couple drinks at the bar, and we were hanging out in the kind of lobby of the hotel. It's like a really big kind of atrium. It's really, really interesting. And it's, large enough that other people can kind of hang out far away. So, everybody is several yards away from each other. And my buddy and I are hanging out, and we notice this little group kind of hanging out and talking over on some couches, and the girl looks really familiar. And so we were just scratching our heads and racking our brains, and we're like, who is that? So we're pretty sure she was in something quirky or independent. And we were like, it's not the girl from Napoleon Dynamite. It's not the girl from Scott Pilgrim. And then we were like, oh, you know who it is? It's the girlfriend from Arrested Development. It's Egg. So Mae Whitman played George Michael's girlfriend, who his dad could never remember. Every time he saw her, he was like, oh, who's this? And he ended up calling her Egg. And we were just laughing that it took us so long to figure out who this person was. And then my friend, he's like, we got to get a picture with her. And I'm like, because here's the thing. Celebrities are just people. And, they're very high profile people. A lot of people know who they are. But can you imagine being a person and somebody walking up to you and being like, oh, there's you. I know everything about you. I know where you went to high school. I know what you've been working on this last year. I know what you like. It's kind of freaky. I've been starstruck a couple of times, but generally I'm pretty respectful and will, say hello, thanks for all the great work, and let them do their thing. But my buddy wanted a picture. So he works up the courage to run over there, and he introduces himself and says hello, and then he waves me over and hands me a phone to take a picture, and sure enough, we got a picture of Mae Whitman. On that same work trip, I went to the Magic Castle. If you ever have the opportunity, I definitely recommend it. It's a really, really cool experience. We're hanging out in this swanky place, watching all kinds of amazing magicians do crazy stuff, getting ready to leave, and on our way out, coming down the stairs, is this person who I'm like, that is a famous person. I've had a bunch to drink. I can't remember his name. And my buddy is also like, oh yeah, I know who that guy is. He's on Saturday Night Live. Turns out it's John Mulaney. I'd had quite a lot to drink at this point, and I remember saying, hello, Steve. He wasn't super famous at this point. He was kind of the guy who would be on the news every once in a while, and he did a little bit of stand-up, but he hadn't had his own TV show or really broke out yet. So I couldn't quite place his name. And Steve seemed close enough. My buddy again wanted a picture, but there is no photography allowed in the Magic Castle. And so he very politely said, sorry, you can't take pictures in here. Thanks, guys. I seriously doubt he remembers that. So don't drink and talk to celebrities, kids. Nah, you can do whatever you want.